Evening, everybody. Welcome to Flyway Nights with Yola Basin Foundation. And I have a couple of slides I want to share with you about what we have going on tonight. It's always good when it works. There we go. So this evening, we're going to be hearing from Megan Isadore from the Otter Ecology Project. And I love the title, right? Sharks, pelicans, and ladybugs. River otters, the little predators that could. Next month, we're going to hear from our own volunteer, Mike Davis. Mike is going to be sharing with us about the Yola Bypass Wildlife Area and some of the wonderful spectacles that we see when we go out there. Also want to make sure that you're up to date on the rest of our series for this season. Our last one will be in April, the Yola Bypass Wildlife Area updates with Garrett Spann, who is our area wildlife manager. And if you are not aware, we are currently flooded, so the gates of the wildlife area are closed. And then finally, gotta mention California Duck Days. Duck Days is coming up end of April, and we hope we see everybody there. So I am going to bring us back. Let's see, stopping my shirt. And I am going to be turning over the spotlight to Megan and have her introduce herself. And why am I not seeing this? There we go. Introducing herself and sharing with us about those amazing little mammals. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Corky, and thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming to hear about river otters, one of our favorite animals in the world. I'm just going to share screen right now and get started. And let's start from the beginning. So I'm Megan Isadore. I'm the co-founder and executive director of River Otter Ecology Project. We're based in Marin County in Forest Knolls in California, of course, in California. And I started working with river otters about 13, 14 years ago when our project started. And the reason that happened was because for the past 25 years, I've been working with endangered coho salmon in Lagunitas Creek, which runs through Marin County. And as we were working out there, we started seeing otters more and more often in Lagunitas Creek. And we said, what's going on with the otters? Let's find out. And so our project began. So I'll tell you a little bit about ROEP, River Otter Ecology Project. First of all, we live and work on the unceded lands of the Coast Miwok, the Ohlone, the Bay Miwok, the Wapo, and Pomo tribes. And we are truly grateful for their stewardship of this land for millennia. We create lasting protections for local waterways using community science, research, education, and advocacy, of course, using our ambassador, the North American river otter. We believe that lasting environmental change starts with local actions, as you all believe as well, and local actions start with people. What we do is engage people in actively supporting their waterways in their own spaces. And I'm going to talk some about that tonight, but I'm also going to talk and show and tell lots about river otters and their natural history. So let's start with the story of river otters. It's one of resilience and recovery. It's about the unexpected, under the radar return of this adorable charismatic species whose presence is a hopeful sign of pretty healthy watershed. It's about how paying attention to what's going on in our own public spaces, consumes management and planning.
Babe, I don't know how to do it. I mean, there's the picture. We're there. I just can't make any sound go.
Studying the otters also led us to questions about how their recovery might affect shared watersheds Megan might tell us about the state of our own watersheds. And of course, they charm everyone. They help us make the case for protecting the gains we've made over the past 50, 60, 70 years in cleaning up and restoring precious watersheds. Of course, those gains are under attack now, and I'll get to that at the end. But first, let's talk about where we are at this moment and how we got here. So why otters? Otters disappear when conditions are not right for them. They're able to move between watersheds, between waterways, and they're not shy about seeking healthier places when conditions aren't right. So from the 1800s until the present, river otters were present and numerous all over North America, but they disappeared from large swaths of the country due to the usual suspects: trapping, pollution, loss of habitat. The fact that they're back, not just in California, not just in the Bay Area where we started our project, is really good news. It tells us that the work that we've done and are doing as humans in California, in the United States, is effective, and it shows results that ripple way forward into the future. As we humans take up more and more space, river otters have become an urban species. Seeing them in cities and suburbs is great for awareness, and it's a good indicator of waterway health. It sometimes makes things a little hard for the otters and causes a little bit of human and otter conflict, mostly because, like all charismatic wildlife, people want to go after them, they want to chase them, they want to get those photos. So that can cause a little problem for the otters. But thankfully, the conflicts are few, and river otters, of course, are charm bombs who make it easy for us to advocate for clean waters and conservation. So when we started our project, the first thing we did was find out what was known about river otters. We looked at the CDFW, California Fish and Wildlife Department, range map for river otters in California, and this is what it looked like. This was in 2012 that we began, and that range map hadn't really been changed, updated, looked at since 1995. So here you can see that the Delta has river otters present and a little bit in San Jose, although that's pretty iffy, but they may have been there. And all the way around San Francisco Bay was considered not otter territory. We knew that wasn't true because here we are over here in this area, and we had seen otters here, and we knew otters had been seen in the Marin headlands at Rodeo Lagoon. So we started gathering information in two ways. We started a community science project called Otter Spotters. A lot of you probably already are otter spotters, which collects and documents otter sightings from anybody. It's community science. We also started a systematic focal research study area in Marin County, where we look into population numbers, changes in population, diet, genetic studies, and a little bit of health studies. So as we move forward with this project, this is our otter spotter map from our website. The yellow dots are otter sightings. The red crosses are sadly dead otter sightings. And the little blue dots you see way down here are possible otter sightings. Sometimes people will send in a sighting and either they're not sure it's an otter, they didn't send in a picture or a photo, we're not sure they're sure what they saw. So we're pretty careful about collecting our sightings and ensuring that they're actual sightings before they turn yellow. So the blue ones are maybes. Otter Spotter began region-wide for the Bay Area only, and it's spread out significantly, including all of California now, as well as sightings from all over the United States and into Canada. Here is the Otter Spotter map with the Yolo Basin area right in here in the center. And I wanted to show you this for a couple of reasons. One is that this is a community science map. Observers just happen to see otters and then they happen to send in their sightings. So over time, we've built up an awareness of where otters are. But what it doesn't tell us is where otters are not for sure, because we're not going out and doing systematic studies, making grids, going through the grids, all that sort of thing. We are just collecting sightings from people who happen to see them and happen to report. One of the things we find out from this is hotspots of otter fatalities. And here is the Delta area is a big hotspot. And I would really expect it to be because there are a lot more otters there. But one thing that we can't tell from our sightings is how many otters there are. We can tell that a little bit better in our focal study area in Marin because we count them every year, year after year after year. We can't tell from these opportunistic sightings. So as time went on, our people got to know a little more about Otter Spotter, and we started sending in their otter sightings from other places in the country. We're a tiny organization. There's only 2 of us, and we started with nothing. So over time, we didn't really advertise outside of California's Bay Area and then a little further afield as time went on. But people started hearing about our project and sending their sightings in, so we got more. Our influence is spreading, as you can see, across the United States, and we're now working with partner projects, mostly watershed groups and zoos, to locate otters and use the sightings for watershed conservation purposes across the country. So this project is really exciting for us. It's called Otters for Waters. And we have the 5 projects you see here in Utah, Arizona, New Orleans, and Rochester, New York. So if you look at the Utah map, you think, why do they have that? There are no otter sightings there. It's because in Utah, the population of river otters is very small. We're looking for them. They were reintroduced in the last 20 to 30 years, and no one knows where they are. So we are helping to find the otters and see if they've spread out. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife in Department of Wildlife something in Utah asked us not to put those sightings on a public-facing map because they have had some concerns about poaching of river otters. So we said, fine, that's great. We'll save the information. We'll use the information. You can use the information, but we won't make it public. And we offer that service to all of our partners, and we offer that service to all of our otter spotters as well, because the most important thing we can do is protect, of course, otters while finding out where they are. So if you all see otters and you feel like you just don't want your sighting to be public, you can tell us that and we'll honor that. We're fine to do that. So let me move on. So who cares about the increased range? I mean, it's really fun. It's really exciting to do this work, but let's really talk about the impact that it has and why it matters. So here, the light pink map is the one I first showed you, the original Otter Spotter sightings map. After we had been in business for 5 or 6 years, we had collected enough sightings to submit our data set to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And mostly based on our data set, but not all. There were a few other data sets included in this. They increased the river otter range map by 4,100 square miles of otter range. And that's that darker color that you see on the map. So who cares? Why did we work so hard to do that? Because of river otters' importance as predators and their vulnerability to environmental contamination, interest in their movements in response to climate change, and of course their charisma, a lot of agencies and organizations have an interest. So if you take a look at this map, you see San Francisco Bay in the darkest maroon sort of color down there. And you see that a lot of that new range is in the SF Bay area, where there are so many restorations, large and small, and in your area too, where restorations are happening all the time. River otters respond to restoration and they spread out and they thrive. And those restorations are often geared toward endangered species, as we know. So, of course, agencies and land managers want to know about these fierce little predators who are doing so well and making such a wonderful recovery. In addition, natural resource managers in general, spill response folks, wildlife rehabbers, people concerned with wildlife crossings like the UC Davis crossings.net, and wildlife disease surveillance folks and the public. Everybody is interested in otters. So finally, understanding the otter's current range, as well as the changes that happen during the next decades, can provide us a window into waterway conditions. Changes in temperature, sea level rise, ocean acidification, all could change the prey species available to the otters, as well as their range and their habitat availability. And that's why we care about Otter Spotter. So I'm going to ask you all, if you see otters, please tap on over to our website and input your sighting. It's easy. You can do it on your phone, no problem. So one of the things that we discovered about river otters is that they are increasingly urban. They're very comfortable in urban setups. Here's a photo of an otter at Lake Merritt on the left in Oakland. And here's a photo. This looks like a nice countryside house, but it's actually in the hillsides of either Richmond or Berkeley, very densely populated. But this group of otters is perfectly happy trotting around. Otters don't live along Lake Merritt, actually. They live in quieter places surrounding Lake Merritt, but they do visit and hunt and explore all over the place. And they're often seen in Oakland, Richmond, Berkeley, all the East Bay cities. They're found in lakes and ponds and lagoons and backyards and ditches, not just along baysides. They're found in Chicago, Houston, Austin, New Orleans, and Norfolk, Virginia, of course, and many more places I haven't mentioned. They are comfortable in cities as long as they have what they need to survive well. So enough entry into the topic. Today we're going to talk about otters in the wild, their prey species, and community conservation. So I always like to start with this slow motion video of otters in Point Reyes National Seashore on a sand dune. They love that sand dune. Otters are mammals who hunt in cold water. They spend a lot of time in cold water. They don't have a thick layer of fat on their bodies like marine mammals have, so they get cold. And they rely on their thick coat of fur to keep them warm. They roll in the sand to help keep their fur in good shape. They're also depositing scent from scent glands in their anuses. And they are very social animals, as you can see here. They're being social together. They mutually groom together. I love this. I love this video. I love to be able to, you can see how thick their tails are. Those tails propel them through the water at a pretty good clip. And you can see some of those, that's actually, I think, a group of mostly male otters and a couple of younger ones with them. Sometimes you can tell the males from the females by the thickness and bulkiness of their heads and necks compared to the females. They don't often show their underbellies and their testes, which is another way to tell, but it's sometimes really subtle and very hard to see unless it's during mating season. So this is February. And February, let me turn this down a little bit. This is February, and February is the beginning of baby season for river otters. Valentine's Day, baby season. And mothers are having their pups in their dens, and they don't really bring them out and about until June. We seldom see them until the very beginning of June. This pup was out at the end of June some years ago. And as you see here, mother river otters are super solicitous of their young. They take really good care of them. They are very affectionate with them. And so are their family groups, which surprisingly don't include the males. The family groups include females, other related females, their sisters, or their young from from past years. And the males are not invited until the pups are much older. So the young are born February through March and sometimes into April. The mothers bring their young out and about with them at about 3 months old, like this pup was. This is a mother. I love this. This is a mother otter. We call her one-eyed mama, as you'll see why in a minute. And she had one baby a couple of years ago in 2022. So several years ago now. She had one baby with her, and she is a great mother. She's had several litters of babies that we've watched through the years because we have our cameras, our motion sensitive cameras set up in various places, and we monitor them year after year. So we get to know these animals. So one-eyed mama had one pup that year, and she couldn't find her pup. Let me turn the sound up here. Turn your sounds up so you can hear this. You hear the squeaking and the grunting? The pup was squeaking, but she couldn't find it. Oh, there it is. So the pup just fell into the pool, and one-eyed mama collected it. So that was great. We call that baby, just so you know this, important to know the names of the babies. We called that little pup Leaf Baby because every time he came out of that pond, he seemed to have a different leaf sticking to his head. More young, since this is the time for youngsters. These are 3 pups and their mother. These are really little pups. They haven't been out with their mom very much. And as you can see, they're kind of bobbing. There's their mother. They're kind of bobbing on top of the water. When they're little like this, they can't really dive because they're not heavy enough, and they just bob. So as you can see, the mother has caught a fish for them, and she's giving it to them, and she gave it to that one pup, got it, and he took it to the bank to eat it. And that's really typical. When the babies are young like that, they can't hunt for themselves, so their mothers get them fish. And as they get older, their mothers become less interested in sharing food with them. And the pups have to learn to hunt for themselves. And they learn to hunt by watching and copying everything that their mother does. There's another mom. It was one year when one of our mothers, one of our mothers in this was at Rodeo Lagoon, she had one pup, and she had 2 daughters from the past year with him, and probably a sister as well with him. And they all shared this one pup. So it was like mom and someone who's looking after this one baby. And the baby was intensely looked after, as you can see. They dragged this poor baby around, and everywhere they went, it went. And it didn't have any other pups to give the other otters anyone to look after. So they all looked after this baby. It was very funny to watch. And you can see on the concrete rail, you can see a little bit of scat. That's a typical otter scat. And otters, when they have little pinch places where they go through from water to water, this is going from a lagoon to a pond, they will often mark and defecate there. And that's one of the ways we find out where to put our trail cameras, where river otters are defecating. It's called a latrine site, and otters use the same latrine sites as each other. A lot of times people think that river otters can only travel in the water, and that's absolutely not true. They're extremely agile on land, unlike sea otters, who are not at all agile on land. Sea otters have a really hard time getting around fast on the land, although I'd hate to test that out by running away from one on the beach. River otters are super agile when they're in zoos. Their zookeepers tend to keep the trees inside the enclosures trimmed back because the otters will climb them. They will go exploring. So here you see a mother otter pulling her pups up that really dangerous cliff with a helper female behind her, probably a related female. And those cute, pretty young pups are climbing up. I don't know why they were climbing up here. It's odd to me that a mother would have her young pups in such a difficult space. And we have found before otters who have fallen down cliffs and not survived, but not very often, thank goodness, but it does happen. So how long do they stay with their mothers? About 14 months, sometimes longer. Reproductive age for river otter females is about a year, although they don't usually give birth until they're 2 years old at least. Male river otters don't usually inseminate females until they're 3 or 4 years old. I like this because it shows how truly amphibious these otters are. River otter pups are born in litters of 1 to 5, but usually 2 or 3 pups. And how did these babies come into the world? Reproduction is really interesting. In river otters, they mate in the water like these two are doing. The male grabs the female by the neck and holds on to her. They mate, the egg is inseminated, but river otters have what's known as delayed implantation, or if you want to be fancy, we can call it embryonic diapause. This video was otters mating on April 9th. Female river otters go into estrus, into heat, a few weeks after giving birth. So if they give birth in February, then March or April, they'll probably go into heat. So they've got little pups in their den that they're looking after and feeding on milk and bringing food to. They're fishing for themselves, and they're doing this pretty active mating. And it's not always this calm and quiet. Sometimes the females really fight and try to get away, and it can get noisy. But they mate in the water, and then they'll go rest on the bank for a little while and then go back and mate. And this mating happens a few times over the course of a month or so. And at that point, their egg is fertilized. The male takes off, and the female goes about her life and bringing up her young. And she doesn't see the male again. He goes off to find more females in estrus. And she goes off to look after her youngsters. So why people always ask why do they have delayed implantation? It's really common in marine mammals, and it supports marine mammals giving birth when the conditions are right. It's not really the case in river otters. Conditions aren't that great in February for them, especially in colder climates or even in March. And also flooding in the spring can really do damage because the pups can't swim when they're young. They have to learn how to swim, and they can't hold themselves in rushing water. That's part of the reason why females tend to have their natal dens where they keep their pups when they're tiny high up above water level if they can. So we think the theory is that delayed implantation may be a leftover adaptation from millions of years ago, but it's really not known. It's very interesting. That is a male otter. That's Leaf Baby, the little one. There's Leaf Baby's mother, one-eyed mama. And that is a big male otter. This was in early July, a couple of years ago. And the male otter had not been around, of course, when she first came out with her baby, but he suddenly showed up. And out of the 13,000 videos of river otters that we've collected over the years, this is the only one where we have seen a male river otter join a mother with a pup that young. They'll usually come back when the pups are, when it's about August, September, even October. The males are kind of allowed to come back and be around the young pups, and they're usually fine with them. I've never seen a problem, but I really have never seen a male and a mother and a baby hang out together in this way. And I'm going to play the video again. Let me go back because let me actually go back. I'm going to play the video again because you'll see how affectionate he is with so our theory, our best guess, not even a theory, our best guess is that big male is her son from a year or 2 years ago, possibly her son, maybe her brother, but definitely related to her. And he hung around with them for a week or two, and then he went off to do his thing, and they carried on. Very interesting. Never seen that before. So a little bit about river otters' lifespans. River otters live for about 10 to 12 years in the wild, and they can live a lot longer than that in zoos and captivities. They are host to a lot of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. Some of these parasites are capable of causing disease in otters. Watch this otter now. Watch when she turns around. I think it's a female. See, missing the back left leg. So some of these, some examples of the diseases they get are E. coli, salmonella, distemper, parvovirus, rabies, and now, of course, H5N1 avian flu. That flu has been found in marine otters and southern sea otters in South America. One case was found in a Eurasian river otter. We know river otters can get it. We know our otters, Lontra canadensis, North American river otters, can get bird flu, but we have no idea whether they do, where they do. We have no information on it. The most current avian flu virus reports are being held back from CDC publication by the new administration. Scary. So, oh, and I was going to say about the otter with the lack of back leg. We often see otters with injuries and sometimes pretty bad injuries, but they generally do pretty well with them as long as the infection doesn't go through them too badly. So this otter, we don't know how it lost its leg, but we do know that for at least 3 years, we saw it running around and doing just fine with all its friends and hunting and fishing and doing what it should do. So I think it was okay. Now this otter is a really old girl. As otters age, their teeth wear and they become less good at hunting, and then they become weaker, of course. This poor old girl's teeth were worn nearly to a nub. She's also very pale for an otter. Otters usually have that pale color on their underparts only and not on top. She may be leucistic. She's not an albino because her eyes are not white, but she's certainly an old girl, and I love this photo because she's just a beautiful, beautiful animal. So Aside from just getting old and dying and the illnesses and diseases that river otters get, there's just no question that the future of river otter populations depends on us. In addition to the loss of habitat, the trapping, the pollution I talked about, domestic dogs can be a problem for otters. Roads, of course, you saw those little red crosses on our roads. Railroad tracks, river otters actually do get hit by trains. And all of these issues can be problems for otter habitat. So conservation and restorations brought river otters back again to thrive in the United States. Quitting environmental protections and quitting environmental work would cause their loss again. Let's move on to what river otters eat, prey species. I love this part because river otters love to eat even more than I do. And they eat almost everything that they can get their teeth around that's meat. They're obligate carnivores, meaning they need to eat meat, but they're not choosy carnivores. They eat whatever is plentiful and easy to catch. This is a guitar fish, and these make an easy catch in shallow lagoons and shallow parts of the near shore. And river otters are very happy to hunt in the near shore, or not even all that near shore in the ocean. And they'll go out and because for them it's great. They can get much better bigger prey in the ocean than in lakes and streams. So this otter has a guitar fish, and she is at Drake's Beach in Point Reyes National Seashore, and she got that guitar fish and she carried it back to her pups in the reeds, and that made a really good dinner for them. So otters eat everything that's plentiful and easy to catch. Fish is the greatest part of their diet almost always, but they take all kinds of other critters seasonally. Here's a fish in the Contra Costa Canal, which looks like it would be a horrible place for wildlife, but actually isn't. And that's an otter with a really pretty big catfish. They're really good at catching large critters. As you see here, this is a river otter in Bolinas Lagoon, duking it out with a leopard shark. The picture on the right is what was left of the leopard shark after the otter killed it, dragged it up onto the dock, and started dying. Astonishing, because I asked the guy who took that picture to go out and measure that leopard shark, and it was definitely longer than the otter. Otters can be, including their tail, they can be up to about 42 inches long, and this leopard shark was about 3 or 4 inches longer than that. So bigger than the otter, and yet the otter did fine and had a good meal. And I'm happy to say that after the guy took that picture, he felt bad for disturbing the otter, so he left, and the otter came back and got the rest of his. So they are very fierce predators, and we'll hear more about that in a minute. But do they eat trout and salmon? People always ask me that. And yes, of course they do. Everybody wants to eat trout and salmon. That's a steelhead at Golden Gate National Recreation Area. And there's an otter happy to get it, and there's one hoping to share. Otters do not like to share. They only share with their babies when they're young, and then when they get older, they have to get their own food. So about salmon. Not this January, but last January on New Year's Day, I was at Lagunitas Creek watching the coho spawn, and I saw a fight between a river otter and an adult male coho. And guess who won? Yes, the coho. Yes, I was so glad because they're so terribly endangered. I don't mind that the otters eat the coho. It's natural, it's what they do. But this salmon was huge. It was a huge male, very fresh, very beautiful, clearly wasn't spawned out by a long shot. And I thought, oh no, I'm about to see an otter kill a beautiful bundle of possibility. And thankfully, that coho salmon won the fight and he disappeared, and the river otter was stuck behind, kind of angry. But I did see that river otter later eating a spawned out female salmon. So it's a complicated web of life that we watch out there in the watershed, and it's just endlessly fascinating to me to see what happens and how these webs of how these food webs work. For example, river otters love crayfish crabs, and they're really good at eating crayfish like this red swamp crayfish, which is an non-native species that outcompetes our little signal crayfish. These crayfish also eat salmon spawn, the little one. I mean, salmon fry, the small salmon. Crayfish eat them like crazy. And I'm always happy to see river otters crunching on crayfish in the creeks where the salmon spawn, because it gives those little fry just a little better chance of surviving to go out to sea. Water birds, and we're going to talk a little bit about water birds for a minute here. I have seen river otters catch gulls. I have seen them actually catch all these birds: gulls, coots, grebes, scoters, cormorants, and ducks. They're really good at catching water birds, and they usually do it seasonally when other food is harder to find, because it takes some effort for them to get a bird, especially a large bird. I don't think it was that hard for them to find to catch these gulls. I've seen them do it. I've seen an otter go and go under the water like a little submarine, come up beside a gull, hook its arm across its neck, grab its neck in its teeth, and swim it to shore. And I have seen that happen in big flocks of gulls sitting on the water, resting on the water. And I've seen otters come up and take two, one after the other, and the gulls just hang out like they don't even know what's happening. It's really interesting to me. But river otters are very good hunters and very stealthy. What about the brown pelicans? I'm sure some of you have heard about river otters eating brown pelicans, especially if you're birders. You see this little river otter's head in this photo is about the same size as the pelican's head. Pelicans are very big birds and they're very strong, but they are no match for river otters. So back in 2018, we noticed that river otters were starting to prey on brown pelicans at a lagoon in Point Reyes. And this is kind of a new phenomenon with river otters. It's only been documented at Rodeo Lagoon in the headlands, in the Marin headlands in 2006. And then the only other documentation of this is a single one at Lake Tolowa in Del Norte County in 1998. That's it. So when we saw this happening, we thought, oh, we need to find out about this. At Point Reyes, river otters eat fish. We've done prey studies there. They eat fish, water birds, and other prey year-round. As time went on, we noticed they were taking more and more brown pelicans every summer, and there was no apparent change in pelican behavior at the lagoon. So we got really curious about what was going on with this. And we investigated by systematically counting pelican carcasses, marking, photographing them, documenting where we found them, and the numbers and locations of pelican groups during our surveys. Beautiful, beautiful birds. And a little bit of background, not too much. Brown pelicans and river otters both are recovering species in coastal California. Pelicans have almost no predators. There are a few anecdotal accounts of the occasional pelican being taken by a shark, an eagle, or a sea lion, but they're not generally preyed upon when they're resting on the water as they do in Abbott's Lagoon in Point Reyes. So what we saw was otters drowning pelicans, devouring some of them, and leaving the carcass either in the water or on the bank to finish later. Otters often do that. They leave their food and return. The pelicans paid zero attention. They appeared completely unfazed by the predation happening near them. But once they noticed it, occasionally they would fly in circles above the predation as it was happening. We also observed mother river otters taking their young to the water and showing them how to capture and drown pelicans. It's horrible. I've seen it happen and I don't ever want to see it again. They go under the water, grab them by the foot. When the pelicans put their beaks down, they grab their beaks and they drown them. It's dreadful. So we thought, well, what's our study going to be about? And we hypothesized that the predation of pelicans at Abbott's Lagoon occurs at a pretty low level without relation to local abundance of the pelicans. And we also thought that on the whole, the pelicans have been tolerant of the predation, and they don't really respond to it by altering their pattern or their use of the area, spatially or over time. So those were the two questions we were interested in answering. So what did we find out? We went around, we spent one season, we had a very tiny grant to do this. It really wasn't enough to do more than one season. So we did that. We found that the otters took 73 pelicans, maybe more, because coyotes scavenged and removed carcasses when they could. During the study period, which was over one summer to fall season, the pelicans didn't really pay a lot of attention to the river otters. In later years, the pelicans at Abbott's began to actually pay attention and began to move when they saw them. So our next question is, have they learned, and will this behavior continue? I'm really interested in this, and we don't have money to continue the study, but we go out to Abbott's whenever we can. We did find that the pelicans changed the sites where they clustered together during the course of the summertime, but that was in relation to the water level decreasing during summer to fall. It didn't appear to be in relation to the otters. So, well, one additional note, this is really interesting. River otter predation provides a nutrient subsidy, more food to the coyote scavengers. We saw this many times. The coyote scavengers would come out, they would actually wade out into the water to grab pelican carcasses after the river otters killed them. Fascinating. We have a little note in a journal that came out about this, and our pelican paper is coming out this spring, so that'll be on our website and you can read about it as well, or if you sign up for our newsletter when it comes out, we'll connect you to it. Otter group. Back in 2015 and 2017, we collected, cleaned, and dissected otter scats along with high school students. It was one of our hands-on high school projects where students learned to be a scientist in really interesting ways. So we collected all these otter scats, we cleaned them, we dried them, we dissected them and looked at the hard parts that remained, the bones, and all the other little hard bits, the carapaces, the shells, and identified as many as we could. And we found all of these critters in river otter feces. The top left one is a carp. Lots of carp. Carp are really slow and they're really big. They're great food for river otters to eat. The one on the bottom left is a green crab. You may have heard about sea otters eating a lot of the invasive green crabs, and they do. River otters do too, and but probably not to the extent that sea otters are able to consume them. The most interesting thing I ever saw in otter scat was an entire scat full of ladybug carapaces. Fascinating. So clearly the ladybugs were clustering like they are here, trying to stay warm. A river otter came by and just ate them, all of them. It was really just so interesting. So we found a lot of insect carapaces, of course. We found a rodent tooth at one point, lots and lots of little mole crabs that you find on the beach, just all kinds of stuff. River otters are so not, they have super fast metabolisms and they have to eat a lot in order to stay in good health. So next, oh, I love this one. A little bit about interactions with other wildlife and just general behavior of otters. This is Contra Costa Canal. Again, it looks like a really degraded and horrid habitat, and in some ways it is. But river otters are extremely adaptable. Adaptable is their middle name, and they're really good at using whatever they find. This mother river otter had stashed her pups in that pipe, and her helper females and buddies are around her. That pipe was one that they used to stash their babies. They use it to nap. They use it to hide food in. They use it for protection from people and other predators. And the really cool thing about the Contra Costa Canal is that it has a fence going all the way, a big fence going all the way along it, so people can't get in there. And as you see by the pipe, lots of birds were using that pipe as well. There's lots of wildlife in Contra Costa Canal. Yeah. And this I just put in because it's egregiously fun, and it's really great to see river otter fur when it's dry and fluffy and warm and they're out on a sunny day. This is a group of male river otters being sociable with each other, which they do. They're very sociable animals. They can also be perfectly okay on their own. When they're on their own, they don't seem unhappy. You can see how big and strong and tough their necks are. You can see how well fed these otters are. This is a group of otters in Sausalito, really just doing great. This is pretty interesting. This is two separate groups of river otters, again in the canal, and they're meeting each other. And this is interesting behavior that I don't entirely know how to interpret. But turn your sound up and listen. You'll hear a typical otter noise. You can hear contact calls of otters that know each other. They're also a little bit, they're not entirely, they're a little tiny bit wary with each other, which interests me. And I just want to know the story. I think they know each other. They're neighbors. They're not entirely frightened, but they're a little bit wary to start with. So I really like that video. If they knew each other super well, they would just run up and join the pack. They're friendly. Usually, otters are not too territorial. They will fight during mating season. If males see each other, they might fight, but in general, they're not very territorial. If they don't want to see other otters, they'll just avoid them. They seemed not pretty happy to meet each other. So what about river otters and other animals? They have some predators, wolves, coyotes, bobcats on the babies. If there are babies around, bears will take them, but they don't have too many predators. The river otters are not in any way scared of bobcats. And that, you'll see in a minute why she chased that bobcat away. Usually they just ignore each other, but she had two pretty big babies. This was October. So her babies were not tiny anymore, but still very protective of one baby and one helper female. But she wasn't having that bobcat. She said that otters are like that. I love this one. This was at Abbott's Lagoon in Point Reyes, which was my study site for many years, still is. And these otters had caught a bunch of coots and stashed them by the water here. And the coyote was clearly aware that the coots were there and decided that he would take some coots. So he did. He grabbed some dead coots out of the water and just infuriated the otters. This otter chasing him is the matriarch of the clan. And look how tiny she is compared to him, but she got rid of him in no time. And river otters are really not very afraid of coyotes unless there's more than one. If coyotes are in a pack, they'll just take off. But they're not really afraid of a single coyote. And I have actually seen river otters fight with, I saw a mother river otter. Oh no, it wasn't a mother. It was a river otter with a prey. She had a bird, and two coyotes came after her with her bird, and she fought them both off. She got rid of them, which was pretty scary, but amazing to watch. And even bald eagles are not safe from the clutches of the scary river otters. This was in Jenner, and this otter had brought that very large fish up onto the rock there. And the bald eagle, of course, being a bald eagle, wanted to share. And the river otter did not want that to happen. So he flew up out of the water. I love that photo. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about community conservation and how we use river otters to help conservation in communities. And this video shows a guy with his dog doing just what he should do. He's fishing, his fishing rod is out there. The otter is hanging out. He's just sitting quietly. He's got the dog on his lap. He's perfect. I love to see that. And the otter just goes about her business and ignores him as well. Great. So river otters and their comeback story can really inspire people to want to protect waterways. Otters for Waters is our new program, a couple years old now, to expand otter spotter across the United States. And we identify river otter populations using community science, like I've been talking about. We help our partner organizations build community understanding and stewardship, and we help them to strengthen support for waterway conservation, for restoration, and protective policies. I'm really excited about this project. It's super fun, and it's a wonderful feeling to be able to help other nonprofits to use river otters in a similar way to what we have. We are all engaging people in supporting waterways in their own communities. Our partners know what their communities need. We don't. We're just here to help them achieve their goals. So our vision for this project is a connected network of conservation organizations working locally to make change. Local is the way to go. We think river otters are the best ambassadors for protecting waterways. River otters and coho salmon too. So we can do all the science we want to do, but there's really nothing more compelling than a furry animal with a boopable snoot. That's what we tell everyone, and it's true. So river otter presence, this river otter with the giant striped bass, again, and their presence shows us that what some people see as a degraded waterway, wildlife sees as opportunities to thrive. We try to emulate the otters by finding them, telling their story, and helping people use that information and thrive. This is in, where is this? Walnut Creek, somewhere like that. It's a little man-made pond that they stock with fish for people to fish in. It's a park, and it's very, very well visited by a lot of people. And also, anytime you're going to stock a pond with fish and there are otters around, they're going to find it. So she found this nice little trout to bring back to her young, but she's afraid because people are excited to see her. They want to take pictures of her. She's afraid to cross. They're all talking, they're being loud. But she's not going to back down. She has hungry folks to feed, and she needs to get to her den area, which is hidden on the other side of this. So she waits and then she goes. Good for her. We are always reminding people to give otters their space because we don't want her to spend her precious energy trying to feed our youngsters. And that is the difficult side of awareness and popularization of these animals. And here, again, the canal. I bet the people who built the canal never thought of this use for their workers' ladders. The otters love the ladders. They hang out on them. They use them to get up and down. They groom each other on them. They play on them. The babies hang out and play on them. They are just hilarious. Now, I'm going to answer a couple of questions in just a minute, but first, we at River Otter Ecology Project know that no matter what your political views are, none of you want unsafe drinking water, degraded habitats, loss of biodiversity, or to be ravaged by changing climate. And I want to address two things really quickly, and then we'll answer a couple questions. I know it's after 8 already. Some of you might have heard of Trump's actions regarding California waters. Citing the LA fires, Trump directed federal agencies to immediately take actions to override water operations and environmental rules, including endangered species protections. He falsely claimed that the water would flow to LA fires. Aside from the fact that his guesses about California waters were way off base and in fact dangerous, this sets a really scary precedent that will have devastating consequences for California's water future, for public health and environmental protections. It threatens a federal takeover of California's right to manage our land and our waters. We Californians know that our water management is vital, it's complicated, it's difficult, and it's not perfect. Throwing a monkey wrench into state water policies ends badly. And secondly, we know for a fact that none of you voted for a South African billionaire to illegally take over our government departments with express intention of destroying them. And I know none of you want a dictatorship, so what can we do? Every one of us needs to visit or call our congresspeople and senators, all of our representatives every day, leave messages, and join together in affiliate groups, share information. Don't keep quiet, speak out. I urge you, especially representatives, to learn that you care about democracy and you don't want Elon Musk as your supreme unelected leader. We at River Otter Ecology Project, like you, are individual people who are fighting for our planet and the generations to come. Just like river otters, we're small, but we fight above our weight class. We have teeth, and we know that change begins with each of us. Be like an otter, don't give up. And thank you so much for being here today. I'd be really happy to take just a couple of questions. I'm going to look at the chat. I see let me stop share and take a look at the chat. There's a lot of people here. Not too many questions. Good. Oh, that's a great question, Robin, about otter population affected by nutria. I have zero information about that. I'm sorry to say. As far as I can tell, the otter population in the Delta has been doing just fine. So, but that is an area, that's something that I would love for Robin, for you to remind me of. I know Robin, and he will send me a note to remind me to look that up. Do river otters in Point Reyes have conflict with sea otters? No, they don't. River otters seldom come by Point Reyes. Once in a while they do, and they don't generally have any difficulty at all with them. The river otters are curious about sea otters. They stay away from them, though. Sea otters are 65, 70 more pounds. River otters weigh about 20 to 25 pounds. So they're really outclassed by the giant sea otters. Yeah. Jane is asking about cataloging the data. We collect and save the data, and we have published about it many times. We share otter sightings, dead otter sightings, with California Academy of Sciences, and they collect carcasses sometimes for their collections. Someone is asking, at Port of West Sacramento, are those river otters or sea otters? Those are river otters. Sea otters it would be super unlikely for them to make it all the way from the ocean up to Sacramento. Sea otters generally are in the ocean, or they're in very coastal sloughs like Elkhorn Slough. Okay, hardly audible. Oh, okay, other people could hear fine. Does anyone else have a question for now? I want to thank you all so much for being here. Stay strong, work for conservation. We can make it happen. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your knowledge, and you couldn't see it, but every time you turned on a video, you made me smile. So,
Oh, that's wonderful.
so thanks so much for sharing with us tonight, and I'll get this edited up and hopefully get it ready for everybody who would like to view it next week.
That sounds great. Thank you for having me. Good night.
Good night now.